My name is Ocean Avery. I am drinking in Moe's.
This is Drinkin at Mo's, where we talk about the pros of pro wrestling in the Midwest while sipping on some brews with blessed beers and wrestling. That's my scene. Death matches and lucha libre, it's all so mean. I'm a straight up smart goofball, not no kiss ass. I stand tall when it comes to wrestling. I'm the king. I know every move, every fling. Get ready for a wild time with Drinkin at Mo's, where we don't quit. Drinkin at Mo's, that's where it's at, like a power bomb. We hit hard, never flat. Fucking right, we're living the dream. Talking about wrestling, always a scream.
All right, everybody, taking time out before we get this show started. I want to thank Reaper Apparel for having Drinkin' Mo's be a brand ambassador for their clothing line. They got good stuff. They got t-shirts, they got hoodies, they got beanies, they got lots of great stuff, encouraging everybody to break out of their comfort zone, live their best self, and hey, it's something I try to live every day. Now, be sure when you go and you're filling out your order, use the code drinkinatmos, get 10% off, and the link and the code will both be in the description. Let's fucking go. All right, everybody, welcome Drinkin' Mo's. Big Mo here. You know the drill by now. You like, subscribe, share, comment, all that good stuff. Helps with the pain in the butt YouTube algorithm. We're in most places to find audio podcasts too. Today, I'm excited to have with me Ocean Avery. How you doing?
Oh, I'm doing good, man. Real good. How are you doing?
I can't complain. There's been a lot of, we don't have to go in. We kind of talked about it a little bit before. We don't have to go into all of it, but there's been some positivity in the midst of all of it. So
Absolutely.
that's what counts, you know?
Absolutely.
And then, hell, as, we're approaching December 6th, I actually have my 300th episode airing.
Wow.
With the former Ring of Honor star Cheeseburger.
Wow. Congratulations.
Thank you. And the day after that, I am actually going to be attending the Wrestling Revolver show out like a couple hours from me. So that's going to be a fun time. Always a party there. And then we're a little over a month. Wow, words are hard. We are a little over a month away from unless she goes into labor on her own, my wife getting induced and us having our little baby boy. So,
congratulations. Congratulations.
Pretty excited. And so I'm trying to, going even harder at it until like partway through December so I can like just have a whole bunch of stuff scheduled out. And that way I can concentrate on the little guy and just be like, oh, a day I normally post, done.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I feel you.
So first thing I'd like to start off with everybody with is what got you started as a fan, and then what got you deciding to make that leap into the business?
As a fan. Yeah, so it's a weird one, I suppose. I had a Spider-Man comic that had come with like the old like Marvel Diamond Select figures that they had.
Oh yeah.
And one of the ads in it was for TNA action figures. And they had like Abyss and Sting and all that. I was like, wow, these guys are really cool. And so I kind of like asked my dad about it, and he had been like, oh, well, that's professional wrestling and stuff like that. And he's the one who would kind of introduce me to professional wrestling more or less. And that's kind of how I got into it. It was just kind of seeing the cool characters and stuff, and I was like, ooh, this is fun, like this is exciting. And then my dad just watching with me because I'm from New Mexico, and he used to go down to he used to watch like the Funk Brothers and stuff like that whenever they'd wrestle here and stuff. So I come from a lineage of wrestling fans,
I've had a small group from relatives in the wrestling. I seem myself and one of my cousins seem to have been the ones that actually stuck with
Yeah.
being fans. Like a lot of people, there were times that I kind of fell out a little bit, but I'd always be watching, but
Yeah.
not like as religiously as I would at other points.
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean, I definitely reinvigorated my dad's love for professional wrestling, both when I was watching it more regularly as a fan, and then also now that I am a professional wrestler, it's certainly
Oh
reinvigorated.
man, I can only imagine, getting to be there for you for your shows, and for him having been a fan himself, and now I can imagine. I mean, I know my wife would probably discourage our little guy from doing it, but it would be that sense of pride that I can imagine he has. This like, yeah, my boy's actually doing this. This is awesome.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. No, I mean, yeah, it's a lot of just I guess just the pride in the fact that I'm doing something that I've always wanted to do. So,
Oh yeah, no, I
because I
can.
mean, I pretty much since the first time I ever watched wrestling, I was like, ooh, I want to do that. Like that's what I want to do.
Oh yeah, I've in different aspects of it. I can kind of relate. Yeah, I always had that dream, but then after getting hurt in the military, that kind of like, yeah, maybe that part ain't really gonna work. But then you see all the different aspects of what goes to put on a show, and then you realize, well, maybe commentary, re-announcing,
Yeah.
doing stuff like that. Hell, being involved in any aspect of production, you're still involved in the show.
Oh yeah. Um, it's certainly something that I generally tell newer people who started our school is that just because like if you find out the physical in-ring part of it isn't for you, um, like that doesn't mean that being a part of wrestling isn't, right?
Yeah.
Like there's so many different avenues to go down. We have one guy, he's a manager, goes by the name Lucas Scratch, who initially came in to train as a manager, and then wanted to become a professional wrestler. And he wrestled, I think, 2 matches before he realized it's not really for me. He has a lot of pre-existing like joint issues and stuff like that, and he realized that just physically being in the ring wasn't for him, but he's still a part of it with being a manager and stuff like that. So there's so many different avenues with wrestling to go down.
Oh yeah, so many different stuff just involved with the creativity of the shows, because there's a lot of shows out there that like they put a lot into every aspect of the show, that like when you see those promotions out there, when you see their shows, like it's plainly obvious how much they put in just by sitting there and watching.
No, absolutely. And I mean, I think that the funniest way I ever heard wrestlers described was just jacked theater kids.
I can see that.
Because at the end of the day, that's kind of what we are, and I feel like that a lot of people they misunderstand that coming in. Certainly have a lot of new people who think that they can get away with not talking or not being a character, stuff like that. Like I always make the joke, like I don't really have a gimmick. I'm just me. Like I there's not there, there's a very thin line between what I do in the ring and who I am as a person. But like at the end of the day, you still have to be a character, and a lot of people don't really realize that. And you kind of have to have that theater kid mentality a little bit when you step into a professional wrestling ring.
Oh yeah, and I mean, it seems to go towards where some of the big name professional wrestlers out there that have gone into acting, mostly in movies, but still same thing for theater. You're preparing for those roles, but in the ring, you're portraying that image where whether TV, movies, theater, you're portraying a role there too. So there's those aspects of how to think of a good word here to describe, but projecting that out there and making it believable. Like we know the air quotes predetermined aspects of the business, but there's still the job of a lot of you guys is to, I guess you hear a lot of suspend the disbelief, where you'd be like, yeah, I know this about the business, but man, that guy sometimes makes me wonder.
No, absolutely. It really is, I think, all about just for those, 8, 10, 15 minutes we have with that crowd is making them forget for just a little bit that what we do is performance, right?
Yeah.
And making them take that second to think maybe for a second I don't know who's going to win or what's going to happen next. I think that that's so just amazing that we get to be able to do that. But yeah, I mean, like whenever people at like my day job ask me like, well, you guys aren't really hitting each other out there or anything like that. I'm like, you have to think about it like this. What we do is harder than what any actor does or what most professional athletes do. And I'll stand by that. Because a professional athlete goes out there, they play their sport, right? Actor goes out there, they read their lines. And especially as independent wrestlers, we go out there, we have to come up with what we're going to do. We have to remember everything we're going to do. We have to make them believe our characters. We have to perform our own stunts. We have to come up with our own lines, right? Like professional wrestling exists on this plane of performance that nothing else exists on. Because there's been plenty of times, and every independent wrestler can attest to this, is that you go to a show, you've never met this person, don't really know much about them. You just heard that you were wrestling them. And now you have to build a rapport with this person, come up with a match, and build this idea that either you hate each other or whatever the storyline is for that night. And it's such an amazing thing that we get to do.
Oh yeah. And there's when you were bringing up that stuff there, it got me thinking that professional wrestlers are kind of, it's a hard job, harder than a lot of acting out there, but it's like you guys are doing all the jobs of, a professional athlete, an actor, but you're also like the acting part. It's almost like, yeah, you're being that actor, but you're one of those that's doing their own stunts. There's no stunt doubles out there for that.
Yeah. Because we don't get to say cut and then someone wearing our same outfit comes out and takes a superplex off the top turnbuckle. We got to do that. We got to, or I got to make sure that everything that happens I remember and I make look good. And it's what I think a lot of people don't. I think it's becoming more common knowledge now, but the physicality and the physical damage you take during wrestling is, I think it's really what separates us from anything else.
Oh yeah, most definitely. And
I mean, I've had a handful of concussions. My nose sits crooked out because I've broken it twice. I've had one of my teeth in the back of my mouth is loose right now because I got hit pretty hard with something. It's one of those things where you got to have a little bit of crazy in you to be able to do it.
Oh, good Lord. Yeah. I remember I went and participated in a pro wrestling boot camp here in town where unfortunately the venue doesn't exist anymore, but it was at a convention center attached to the same hotel I was put in the night before I left for Navy boot camp. And I just got the hugest kick out of I left here for one boot camp. Now I'm going back for another.
Yeah.
And then it was just like, I remember specifically for about a week, a little more after that, I was walking funny the entire time. Like, like I feel like sometimes I do when, I have to drive sometimes an hour to get to work. And it's like, once I get out of the car, that's how I felt after that pro wrestling boot camp. I'm like, oh,
yeah. You can ask any indie wrestler about their day-to-day pain, or any wrestler in general about their day-to-day pain. I got a lot of friends and we talk about it a lot of like, yeah, my back hurts, but it's the normal hurt. Like, it's not like I'm injured or, yeah, my shoulder's iffy, but it's the normal iffy.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that you wind up getting used to with
Oh,
it.
yeah.
But, I mean, like I said, you can ask, I think, almost any indie wrestler, and we're all okay with that. Like,
Yeah.
we feel this pain and it hurts, but also we're like, man, this is the best.
I get you.
I think the best example of that for me was I had wrestled Manders on GCW, and he had gotten me for a suplex and draped me across the top rope. And I can tell you right now, truly, in the entirety of my professional wrestling career, nothing's hurt more than that.
Oh, God. I can only imagine.
Hearing the crowd reaction to it, whew, I wouldn't trade it. I would do it again.
No, I can imagine. More. And like I've been lucky enough to meet Manders on a handful of occasions at Revolver, coincidentally, and yeah, I've got nothing but love and respect for him. And it's funny. I was thinking about kind of what I get from at least just the pictures I've seen of shows you've been at. You both have kind of a old schoolish look that I've seen, where it's like, that's kind of the characters that kind of draw me in. Like, yeah, I love the cruiserweights, the high flying stuff, but the ones that like really draw me in are those old school, intense, just knock the snot out of you sort of characters. And Manders is definitely one of those.
He beat the shit out of me. I'll tell you that. He beat the shit out of me. Sorry, am I allowed to swear on this?
Oh, yeah, no, we're good. Okay. There's that whole thing of talking like a sailor. Well, Navy veteran here, so I'm like, I'm the living embodiment of
that. Yeah, I mean, that's so when I first started wrestling, I was big into like Kenny Omega and stuff, just a lot of that super flashy stuff, and I thought it was really cool. Still into it. I love that kind of wrestling.
Oh yeah,
but that's not the kind of person that I am. Both in the sense that I'm not a particularly athletic guy, but also in the sense that I love that real beat you down, no nonsense, violent kind of professional wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
But I really started getting into it, and I started doing shows. You do tape study and you watch people and you find people who you can kind of draw inspiration from. I was drawn to guys like Timothy Thatcher, Regal, Finley, Stan Hansen, all those guys who it's just like there's no real nonsense to what they do. There's not a lot of flash or like
wasted movement. There's like very methodical.
It's just beat you down with things that hurt, pretty much. Mm-hmm. And that's been the thing that really is influenced in particularly one match. It was he was Steven Regal at the time in WCW versus Fit Finley and Uncensored. That match really is the one match that I go back to every time to say this is what inspired everything that I do. Because that was, just two dudes beating the snot out of each other,
Oh yeah. And hell, even more evident with, the guys that I gravitate towards, some of the, intense personas, growing up, Bruiser Brody scared the shit out of me. Like, you see, like now dude, I love watching his stuff. But yeah, I remember growing up and like you'd see his entrances and just the wildness of it all, and it was like he would legit scare the crap out of me. But he had that mentality, and but hell, I listened to a lot of Undertaker 6 Feet Under, and I don't know if it was on that podcast, but I know he definitely talked about a story of starting out in one of his first matches being with Bruiser Brody and just him knocking the snot out of him. It was like that's just I love that intensity because it's like you see guys now like a Samoa Joe or like hell a heel Kevin Owens, like just have that mentality, or one of my personal favorites, Tomohiro Ishii. Like you see, especially with him, like you see that look in his face that is like, especially like if he has a title belt on him at the time, he has that look on his face that like you'd have to damn near kill him to take it off of him. And I love it.
I that's the exact kind of wrestling I've generally been drawn to. I mean, obviously, like I said, when I was younger, I was pulled in by the characters more than anything. Undertaker, Kane, the Boogeyman. Even I loved the scary gimmick characters, and it took till I actually started becoming a wrestler to really appreciate guys like Finley and Regal, Malenko, just not so worried about the flash. And I mean, I think that as always, I'm a full believer that professional wrestling should always be a variety show.
Exactly.
I think that having the cruiserweights on, having comedy gimmicks, having the spooky gimmicks, having the no nonsense guys, I think that's what makes professional wrestling so amazing. Because if you go to a show and everyone wrestles the same way, you wind up kind of leaving like, oh, well, that was cool, but whatever. Yeah. Versus you go to a show where you get a little bit of everything. You get just a touch of every kind of wrestling. And you wind up feeling a lot more excited because you're engaged throughout the whole show. You're not kind of sitting there like, they opened with a lockup again. It's a body slam again, you know?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And there's definitely those promotions out there that they do give you a little something of everything. Like, one that you've actually had a few matches in, GCW. They're freaking killing it. They have the hardcore, death match stuff, but they also have, they have the luchadors coming in. They have the, the old school mat wrestling sort of stuff. A little bit of something for everybody. What was it like for you there? Because we talked about Manders. You also had a match with Effy, which he's like, he can definitely have those somewhat funny moments, but he is definitely one that can also knock the snot out of you.
I love wrestling Effy, man. I love Effy. He's a good dude. The first time I met him, very kind to me, very nice guy. And then actually getting to wrestle him was such a great thing, man. It was a good time. No, I mean, it's one thing I love about professional wrestling is you get to experience so many different personalities, right?
Oh, definitely.
I feel like me and Manders generally connect on our idea of how professional wrestling should be. And me and Effy, we have maybe a mildly different idea, right? He's a bit more of he likes to do the ha-has sometimes, but he also likes to work. And that night he was like, I want to work. Like, I want to put on a really good match. So it was a great experience, and every experience I've had at GCW has been great. I'm hoping to get back on in Phoenix next month. That's my hope. But yeah, I mean, I've wrestling has been a great privilege for me to meet a lot of very intelligent, driven, smart people who just they've been a great privilege to have in my life,
Oh yeah. And like I love it. I've had the privilege of having a handful from there on, or they're there now, or they've stepped through there, like in Alex Colon. He's huge there. John Wayne Murdoch, I've had him on twice, and
Yeah.
I got a recording scheduled at least with his tag partner Reed Bentley. Like I love how, like we talked about, sort of the variety show, the buffet aspect of it.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of something for everybody there.
Yeah.
You know, like all sorts of genres of wrestling, there's stuff that people like, stuff that don't. But then you get some of those people out there like me that's like, you put wrestling on in front of me, I'm gonna watch it.
It's always important to find your style and to find what part of I always think of it like the Muppets, right? The Muppet Show had so much different stuff on it. They had musical numbers, they had comedy bits, they had all this different stuff. But I think that, and this is my biggest piece of advice to anyone starting out in wrestling or anyone who wants to pursue wrestling, because it's something I wish I had taken more seriously when I first started, is learn the fundamentals first. Learn how to be a baseline wrestler first. Because that's what saves the day for you every single time. A lot of new kids, and I've talked to people, my friend Amira out in Portland, she is a great example of understanding fundamentals and how well that's going to work for you as a wrestler. Obviously, she can do all the great stuff, but also she is fantastic at the basic stuff. And that's something I've always prided myself in, is being able to do the basic stuff incredibly well while also being able to do the crazy stuff. And I think that so many young kids who are getting into this, they want to run before they can walk. And I think that it's bloating the independent scene of people who want to be the next high flyer and crazy shit dude without being able to just step into the ring and have a wrestling match with someone.
Oh yeah, you got to walk before you can run, sort of thing.
Yeah, and exactly.
I've talked with a bunch of people that have gone through and been in the deathmatch world, where we often talked it like every form of wrestling. There's, like I said, there's detractors, there's people that support it. And it kind of goes along with what you were saying. Learn the basics, and then if the deathmatch world is what somebody wants to go into, then hell, some of the best out there doing that form right now, they have that solid base and they can go whether it's deathmatch or not.
I'm looking to step into the deathmatch world next year just to give it a try. I always used to say I wouldn't do it because I got too much money in the skin with the tattoos. But it's one of those things where it's been itching away at the back of my head, and I'm like, I want to prove that I can do it.
Give it a shot. No, yeah. I get you, and the thing that I often hear, and I will say it now, is I often hear that once you get that taste of it, and let's say you do have that, like, wow, that was fun. Then before you know it, man, you're like, damn it, I want more.
That's what I've heard. We'll see, though. We'll see. I mean, obviously, I'm a glutton for punishment. I like very hard hitting.
You kind of got to be a professional wrestler.
Yeah, really. I like when potatoes get thrown in matches. I'm never one of those guys who it's like, you got a receipt coming. I'm more like, all right, man, now we're working. Now we're having fun. So I love I may very well enjoy it a lot,
Oh, yeah. One of those where it's like, ooh, you really got me good. Wham!
Exactly. That's that. To go back to Manders, he is someone who genuinely has completely changed the way that my brain works around professional wrestling, because I genuinely had never been hit by someone as hard as I've been hit by Manders in a match.
He can do that, yeah.
He hit me hard, and I certainly hit him hard right back. And it was one of those things where I was like, it was that moment of proving myself that I was like, I can do that style. The problem is that I was like, I can do that style. Now that's the style that I always want to
learn. I get you there. Yeah. I remember seeing him. This was after, well, I guess they're split up pretty much everywhere now, but when the second gear crew split up in Revolver, and then Revolver had their like Cage of Horrors show, where it's usually like a no, I don't really. It's just like you back in the TNA they had Ravens match like the Clockwork Orange. It was like that, and it was sometimes it's like teams going up against each other. This time it was just those 3.
Mm-hmm.
And man, that was nuts.
Yeah. I mean, you got to have a certain level of crazy to do that kind of stuff, right? I mean,
oh yeah.
My coach Gino Rivera, I love the guy to death.
I had him on.
He's a great worker. Love the guy, but he is definitely one of those guys who he does not like to be hit. Which is funny that he bred a student like me who absolutely loves that. But yeah, no, he's one of those guys, and it's just again, it's one of those talents that you have to have as a wrestler to be able to learn when to pull back and when to go all out with someone. Like with a lot of people, I'm like, okay, I know we're gonna hit each other. Like that's just the way it's gonna be. But then some people, you're like, I know this guy doesn't want to get hit, so I have to be able to make all this stuff look like I'm killing him, like I'm absolutely just dog walking him. But in reality, he doesn't feel a thing.
Yeah, there's people out there that can like make it just look to the point where you're like, you hear about it after, and you hear how like safe they were, and like making it like look very freaking real, and then you're like, wait a minute, they didn't actually. Oh, you fooled me on that one.
That's one of those next level talents, man. I absolutely admire that.
Oh yeah, there's definitely people out there that are fucking good at that, and another ones of those that I do enjoy those characters, but then I also do enjoy people going back to Tomohiro Ishii. Like one of the first things I remember seeing of him when I first actually started getting to watch Japanese wrestling, I just, and it sticks in my head to this day. You see people throwing headbutts here in the States, and they're making it look real, like it's actually landing. But him, it was like you heard the bone on bone smack, and it's like, God, I got a headache now.
Yeah, that's next level crazy. It's one of those things that I'm like, anytime I see that in a match, I'm like, oh my God, that's so tough. But then my mind always flashes back to that Dominion match with Okada and Shibata, where Shibata gave himself a brain bleed because he headbutted him so hard. And every single time I see it, I'm like, be careful, please.
That is okay. Bringing up Shibata before we go on to another thing that I had for you. The thing that amazes me when it comes to him is I'm a huge fan of Bruce Lee, and Enter the Dragon, one of my favorite movies out there. And just thinking, remember hearing about what his cause of death was, and knowing Shibata had the same thing, but he survived it. And it was like, whoa, like two people at like peak physical conditioning going through the same thing, but one is no longer with us, and the other people thought wasn't ever going to get back into the ring, but now look at him.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it's one of those things of medical advancement, right?
Yeah.
Bruce Lee, we weren't quite where we are now. There's a lot more ways to help someone with that. But no, I mean, it's one of those crazy things to think about. That I remember I had watched that match, and that is up there with one of my favorite wrestling matches, just because of, number one, the story of it, of Shibata carrying on that Inokiism kind of wrestling, and Okada kind of embodying the new generation of New Japan wrestlers, where it's a bit more of the sports entertainment behind it. And then just the story, obviously, of that was almost the end of Shibata, both in life and in wrestling,
Yeah.
So that match remains to me one of the greatest matches.
Oh yeah, it's up there. It is up there for sure. And we've talked a lot about different styles of wrestling. Well, one promotion that I saw you've had at least one match at that I've actually had the promoter on before, that it's a very unique show in Wrestle Drag, where it's
yes,
you got the drag aspect of the show, and then you got the pro wrestling, which I forget if it was him or somebody else that has been through there that pointed out that the showmanship aspects of a lot of the drag performers has at least some parallels to the world of wrestling, because they're often people that are in the drag shows and performing there. They're in that mode. They're in that character that they're out there to perform.
Yeah.
And then wrestlers, yeah, there's the aspects of their in-ring personas that are, pieces of them, which much like the drag performers, same thing. So I had never really thought about it that way, but then, getting to watch through having them on and getting to see that, I'm like, wow, that is a way I never thought about it, but very interesting now that I am.
No, it really is true. I mean, I always say, you look at Ric Flair, and you can't tell me wrestling's not drag. Ric Flair,
the robes and
feathers and sequins and diamonds. No, wrestling and the queer community are far more connected than I think a lot of people give it credit for. Obviously, I think a lot of people, they want wrestling to be tough and macho, but I'm like, at the end of the day, the interconnections with the queer community is huge. And I love Wrestle Drag. It is, it's not where I got my start, but it's definitely, to me, the sign of where I started to get bigger as a wrestler. And I'll always be thankful for Charlie for always giving me a place to wrestle, and for always being so kind to me and always giving me opportunities. But it is genuinely one of the most kind and welcoming and friendly environments for a wrestling show ever, that I've ever worked. And admittedly, it's because we always, with Wrestle Drag, there's always outreach stuff, right? We don't just do, we're just going to wrestle at our normal venue. We will do, we've done a gay bar in Phoenix. We've done a gay bar in Denver. We want to ensure that the community is included in all aspects of it, and that we're creating a safe place for people to enjoy wrestling and to enjoy drag in a way that a lot of people don't really get to, where they feel like maybe it's not a safe place for them to be at because there's too much machismo and all that, and just to make it a safer place for all these people. And I love Wrestle Drag.
Oh yeah, I've been very fortunate enough to have a good handful of people from the LGBTQIA plus community. Okay, the acronym is kind of long, but
it's a long one. It's a long one.
But they're like you said with Wrestle Drag, they've been a lot of some of the most kind-hearted people that I've come across through the podcast. Although I will admit there have been some that it seemed like initially they were a little hesitant, because of okay, looking at me, you wouldn't think of me being right. the supportive of the community as I try to be. But then we get into the interview and they're like, oh, yeah, okay, that's what I try to be. Because much like a lot of the craziness that goes on in the world, I try to mirror a lot of the business of what I feel like it has given to me in a lot of some of my more personally dark moments, and it being that escape. And,
Yeah.
my podcast, drag shows, or professional wrestling, it can be that escape for somebody where, like, they could be having an absolute shit day up until the point where they step through the doors to watch the show. But then, hell, my wife took me to a drag brunch once, and I'm like, me being at the time a little hesitant, because I'm like, what? I didn't know what to expect. But then some of the performers kind of jabbing at me because they could see I was a little uncomfortable, and then I kind of just loosened up. I'm like, dude, this is fun.
It brings you in, and I think that's the beautiful part about both drag and wrestling, is that when you give it that chance, you're going to enjoy yourself.
Oh yeah.
I tell people that a lot with wrestling. It's like, oh, I don't like wrestling. It's stupid. I'm like, well, if you just relax and you don't go in with a preconceived notion of what you're going to expect, you're going to have a fun time. And it's the same with a lot of the drag performances that happen at Wrestle Drag. It's like a lot of people who come to those shows, they come there because they see some of their favorite people from Arizona on the show, or they see certain people they want to see wrestle. And these drag performances happen. And by the end of the night, they always wind up like tipping the drag queens and all that and giving them dollar bills, because they give in to the fun of it all. They're not sitting there trying to have this idea of what they should find fun. They're just like, well, this is all fun. I'm just enjoying myself. So,
exactly.
Yeah.
I definitely have that experience at that drag brunch. And yeah, there's so much crap out there in the world that people just need to, I'm trying to think of I hate to use like a biblical, like, love your neighbor sort of stuff, but it's literally that people just need to learn to be respectful of each other. And you know what, as long as they're living a happy life and being the best version of themselves, who, not to say that I don't give a shit, but like, who should give a shit how they live their fucking life if they're
and as a bisexual man who looks like a homophobic man, it's one of those things where I'm like, I've never understood not letting people be who they are.
Yeah.
And again, wrestling, I think, has especially opened my eyes to that, because it's a lot of exposure therapy being a professional wrestler, especially a professional wrestler who wears trunks. You're putting yourself in a very vulnerable position, and trying to be a tough guy. And it's one of those things where it really opens your eyes to, like, you just have to let people be who they are, and just kind of learn to accept people for that, right? And again, the Arizona wrestling scene and a lot of wrestling scenes in general are very, very welcoming of all of that.
Oh yeah, I would definitely have to agree with that. That, like, yeah, there's still places out there. It's not perfect out there, but compared to where it was when, God rest his soul, Canyon, when he was like still in the closet and going through, we've probably all seen the Dark Side of the Ring episode, where seeing the struggles that he was going through and having to keep that aspect of him hidden. If I can't help but sometimes wonder that if he were to still be around, holy shit, he would be loving it right now.
Absolutely. It's very heartwarming to see how the wrestling community in general is just becoming more accessible to more people, and to me, that's an overall good for wrestling.
Oh yeah, most definitely.
Because at the end of the day, you ask any indie wrestler, our main thing is we want wrestling to be fun for everyone. We want everyone to have a good time when they're at the show. And the fact that it's becoming a more open and welcoming place for every walk of life is fantastic.
Oh yeah. And hell, that's me in a nutshell on commentary or if I'm just in the damn crowd, I want like I want the people around me to have fucking fun. Like I'll admit I can be a little turd sometimes at the wrestling shows, especially when I'm a fan, because I'm trying to be that guy, getting people laughing, like getting somebody to crack. Like I've made Mike Bennett crack in a match once where I just yelled out Adam, and he just looked down like.
I will say I've only broken in a match one time. It was only once, and it was because I wasn't expecting it. I was talking shit to someone after the match, and I was crawling on the ground, like we had just done something. I was crawling on the ground, and this guy he just been ragging me all night. So I kind of shot back with something. I was like, "Why don't you go back to the Munchkin Village?" And he said, "Well, I'm not a Munchkin. I'm a midget." I said, "Why don't you shut the hell up?" And he stood up, and I didn't realize, but he had stood up out of his chair, and he was like legit like a little person. And I looked at him and I was like, "Man, you got me on that one. Like I wasn't expecting that." Like, all right, man, cool. And it's funny because as a heel, I generally pride myself on trying my hardest to make people want to fight me. It is my absolute goal to make people want to try to take a swing at me. So when people kind of give it back and make me crack like that, sometimes it's a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, hell. I even got somebody in a moment like that once where they tried to do, that insult your mama sort of thing. And I just went back, well, I hate my mom, so yeah. And he's just like, okay.
I like to hit people by calling them gap tooth, even if they don't have a gap in their teeth. I like to play on just small little things that someone's gonna be like,
wait, what? I
gonna check right now.
Yeah, I love that. All right, now I got two categories here. First one's a bit of a name game where I try to name off some people. You give quick thoughts on them. I try to theme it towards the guests as much as possible. And, I went down the GCW rabbit hole here and found one of the cards that you were on. And, each of these people were on that card that particular night. Or one of the nights, because, there's like a few of them there. But, so, like I said, give you the name, quick thoughts on them.
Okay.
First one, the one that makes every time I see him in a show, it makes me jealous of the people there because I want to be there. Nick fucking Gage.
Incredibly kind to me. The first show I met him at was Breaking GCW, and he went out of his way to make sure he shook my hand, and because I hadn't seen him, I was just taping up my wrists and stuff and kind of bullshitting with someone, and he had come up to talk to me, and then ever since then, the next show I saw him on was the Denver one. He had taken time out of the time in Gorilla just to come talk to me and ask how everything was, ask what I thought of the match and stuff. There's always a lot of preconceived notions with him, I think, with everyone of this guy's going to be scary. He's going to be, but he was incredibly kind to me, and he's a good dude.
But you know what? And I've heard a lot about that. Where like, him in front of the camera, intense individual. Like literally, the first notes of his entrance hit, and that whole venue turns into a giant fucking mosh pit. And that's part of like where I was saying, I want to be there for that. But then I hear, off camera, back behind the scenes, a very soft-spoken, gentle, kind individual.
He's very, very kind. He had the toughest thing I've ever seen at a professional wrestling show, and it wasn't the death match they did. It wasn't anything like that. you know, he walks with the wear and tear of his body. He's been through.
Yeah.
He is a hell of a worker. He has really put his body through a lot for this business. But the minute he steps out on that stage,
Oh
it's
yeah.
like there's no pain in him at all. And to me, that was one of those moments where I saw it live and I was like, wow, like that is crazy. That
Oh
is
yeah.
the toughest thing I've ever seen. So yeah, no, I love Nick Gage. He's a great dude.
Oh yeah. You hear about that sometimes with, like, I know I've heard about it with different people where it's like, yeah, you see them behind the scenes and they're kind of like, they're showing the wear and tear, but it's like that music hits and they hear the roar of that crowd, and then it's like, boom, like they're walking out like nothing's wrong.
Yeah,
exactly. It's awesome. Exactly. Next person, I have to say, I've only got to see them live a couple times, both at Revolver, actually. But talk about, an equal opportunity ass kicker, Masha Slamovich.
I'll be honest, I didn't have a lot of interaction with Masha with the show I was at. I will say I was not anticipating for her to have this Southern accent. That really surprised me. I don't know why. In my head, I was like, she's definitely right. Like, she's gonna sound Russian as fuck. And then she was walking backstage. I was like, oh, interesting. No, I didn't have a lot of interaction with her. I'll be perfectly honest. The most interaction I had was telling people that their flights had gotten canceled. That was about it.
Like, I'm actually gonna get to see her at that Revolver show that I'm gonna be going to in December. She's going up against Cruel.
Oh wow, yeah.
And I'm like, holy fuck, that's gonna be intense.
Yeah, no, Masha is fucking a next level kind of wrestler. I love watching Masha wrestle.
Oh yeah, and she's actually kind of made a cameo in the interview episode of mine, because I had, oh god, how far, 300 episodes. Sometimes how far back some of the episodes are gets a little fuzzy sometimes, but I had on Akira, and I'm hearing her in the background, and all of a sudden she comes over, and I'm like, you can see her head kind of like right out of like the corner here. I'm like, hello. Yeah. It was weird. Like, I knew there was that possibility, but then I'm like, she's busy with, hell, now the TNA Knockouts champion.
Yeah.
Love that for her. All righty. You know what? We talked a little bit about him, but I feel like I have to ask, because he's an entertaining individual. Effy.
Very, very sweet guy. Absolutely. Again, another one of those people who, I'm not one of the GCW regulars or anything like that. I'm not a big name, but he, even before I had really gotten the chance to wrestle him, had always taken the opportunity to kind of talk to me, make conversation with me. So yeah, like he's a great dude. I think very, very flirtatious guy as well. Which, I mean, I was like, hey, I think he's hot, but yeah, he's a great dude. He's a great dude. I'd love to run it back with him again.
I'd love to even just be able to sit and chat with him like I am with you right now. Because just to be able to pick his brain for a little bit would just be a pretty awesome thing. So who knows? Maybe one of these days. I know he's pretty busy himself. I know at least, I'm pretty sure he still has his own damn podcast. So he's probably, between everything else he's doing along with that, pretty damn busy individual.
That he really is. Yeah.
All right. Now on to some random questions, some wrestling related, some not.
Perfect. Love it.
Most have absolutely nothing to do with anything we've talked about so far.
Perfect.
So, first one, craziest in-match moment for you so far?
Craziest. I don't know if it's really crazy, but it is pretty funny. Um, I had wrestled a hardcore match last December, and we had set up a door on two chairs for the spot where Dante King was going to go up to the top, do a frog splash, send Project West through the door. Like, it's going to be a great spot. It's going to be so cool. We set it up. We get Wes on the door. The minute he lays on the door, the whole thing just collapses in, and we all just kind of take that second of like,
what?
Uh-oh. And we just look at Dante, we're like, well, get up there, do your frog splash. And so he does it anyway. So that was probably kind of crazy, more funniest moment I think I've had in a wrestling match, just because we were all just so excited about the spot, and we're just like, oh, well,
all right, gotta roll with it.
We're like, that's what we got, I guess.
Yeah, that would fit in a crazy moment. I know I've definitely been witness to some crazy moments in some of the shows. A handful of them involving fire, which was always nuts, including the first ever death match I actually saw in person. And that Cage of Horrors match that I mentioned, fire involved in two different spots.
Damn.
And I'm like third row for that. And I'm like, feeling the heat that far back. I'm like, wow.
I admire anyone who's willing to do anything involving fire like that. That takes a level of bravery that I don't think I have.
That, or hell, another example of craziness before my next question that kind of involves, a bit of braveness that I know I definitely wouldn't be able to even think about trying to pull this off. I had somebody on that they've traveled the world, including Puerto Rico. And at one point, they had a shirt on that said, both in English and in Spanish, "Justice for Brody." And I'm like, oh, fuck. Because knowing the story there and how, like, the Puerto Rican fans are known for being a very passionate bunch.
Yes.
And I remember him telling me that later on he had been told by the promoter that the promoter was called and told, if you bring that guy back, he's not making it home.
Sheesh.
And I'm like, yeah, I would not even be able to think about doing anything like that, because that is nuts. But going back into, being that heel and, getting that heel heat, it's like, that is a whole nother level of that you don't see too many people even try to attempt.
Oh yeah. Yeah, no, that is next level. To add one more answer, it didn't have anything to do with my match.
Yeah.
But I do think the craziest thing I've seen in a wrestling show was one of my very early shows in my first year. There was maybe 15, 20 people in the audience. And the main event of the show was a barbed wire death match. I would say that was probably the craziest, because, again, I'm trying to step into that death match realm and all that, but to do it for 20 people, I think that's very wild.
Yeah, you'd think, you're putting your body in even more danger.
Yeah.
You'd think you'd probably want to have a little bit more people in there than that. But hey, if you're able to do that and, put on the same show regardless how many people are in, I mean, that goes the same for any form of wrestling. I got respect for that. You put on the same effort, whether there's 10 people or 10,000. I got respect for that.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Couldn't be me. If there's 10 people, I'm like, hey man, we're gonna take it kind of easy. We're gonna do body slam you, couple punches. Maybe we go home on a roll up. We'll see what happens.
I get
then
you
I wind
there.
up then I wind up not doing that anyway because I've had a couple instances where I was like, the crowd's pretty loud. We're not gonna go crazy out there. And then we go out and we go crazy anyway.
I love it. I love it. All right. We are on the heels, as of this recording, of one of the biggest eating days of the year, Thanksgiving. Everybody has a favorite. What is the favorite Thanksgiving food of yours?
Pumpkin pie.
Ah,
Without a shadow of a doubt. Like I love a good Thanksgiving meal, but there's nothing better than a nice homemade pumpkin pie with just whipped cream all over it.
because that was something I was about to ask you, because I know people that they don't want the whipped cream on there. Then you have people like me that's like, okay, I got the container, just dump it all out there, just swimming in it.
It's a lot like apple pie, right? Like you got to have vanilla ice cream if you're going to have apple pie. It's just one of those things where you can have it without it, but if you have it with it, it's all the better.
Oh yeah, even better for sure. I know. Yep, I'm definitely with you on that. Although I do have a particular fondness for, it's like more of a group, but getting before the dessert, getting, and I like turkey. I like it either deep fried or smoked, but you get turkey, mashed potatoes, stuffing, and you just slather gravy on all of it.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, oh man, just bring a forklift to try to get me out of the damn house.
I come from a mostly Hispanic family, so my Thanksgiving is obviously a lot of turkey and mashed potatoes and stuff, but it's a lot of enchiladas and stuff like that and tamales.
Oh,
And to me, that's what I always associate with a great Thanksgiving meals. I have my turkey, my mashed potatoes, I have a nice green chili enchilada, and then I have some nice tamales, and then
oh yeah,
that's a great Thanksgiving meal for me.
oh yeah. Thanksgiving with my in-laws is a lot of the same, because there is a big Hispanic portion of my in-laws. I love them to death, and man, do they make some good stuff.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
All right. Next up, I mentioned one of my favorite movies.
Mm-hmm.
I do have a few others. There's like a list of like 4 or 5. What is a favorite movie of yours?
Jaws.
Classic.
Yeah, no, that is. Whenever I tell people that, generally they're pretty surprised, but that is a movie that any day of the week I can put on and I will enjoy it just as much as when I first watched it. I don't know what it is about it, but I love that movie. Also, Quint is of very heavy inspiration for who I am in the ring. So, uh, yeah, no, Jaws is definitely my favorite. More recently, like a recent movie that is definitely in like the top 3 is The Holdovers. I don't know if you've seen that one.
I haven't seen it, but I've heard of it.
It's a very nice movie. It's just I'm very passionate about film in general. I love movies. I did work in the film industry for a while. Um, it's one of those movies where it's a movie about people. I love that. I absolutely love that.
Okay.
Nothing, no like world-ending stakes, no universe being exploded. Just a movie about people, and I love it.
That's awesome. And yeah, like I said, Enter the Dragon, one of my favorites. One of my others is actually Forrest Gump. I love that damn movie. I've lost count of how many times I've seen it, and I've actually been to a handful of the Bubba Gump restaurants, and like in all but one, the servers will ask you trivia questions about the movie at different points. I can answer their questions before they're done asking them.
I love that. I absolutely love that.
And like, I got the T-shirt too, but I was at the one at the Mall of America, and my wife knows that I collect. One of the things I collect is souvenir shot glasses, and well, she found a Dr. Pepper Bubba Gump one.
I love that
At the gift shop, and I'm like, oh my god, I have to have that.
That's fantastic.
Then,
Small sidebar, but I will say this: anyone who knows me, and you can ask anyone who has ever interacted with me, pretty much, the one thing I love more than anything in this entire world is a themed restaurant.
mm.
I have forced people to go to Rainforest Cafe. I'm going to Margaritaville. Bubba Gum's a big one. Any restaurant that has a theme to it, I am all in. I love themed places.
All right. Yeah, I love it. And hell, I'm also okay. Growing up, it was pro wrestling and Ninja Turtles for me. That was my and hell, I've even been lucky enough to get to meet the voice of Michelangelo from the original cartoon. I actually have a Funko pop up there signed by him.
That's awesome.
And actually, from the first two movies, the guy behind Splinter. But it leads there's a point to all of it. It leads into probably, in my opinion, one of my favorite movies, and one that I feel like one of the few sequels that is, if not as good as the original, maybe even better, but Secret of the Ooze. My favorite of all of those original ones. That one, like you mentioned with Jaws, like I could literally just be having a bored day. I got nothing to do. Pop that in, and I'm having a good old time.
Great movie. And then again, you were talking about the connection between Ninja Turtles and wrestling, right? I am correct in that Super Shredder's in that one, yeah?
Yes, and I actually have a 30th anniversary Super Shredder up there.
And who plays Super Shredder? Kevin Nash. Right?
Yep.
The connections, right? I always like to blow people's mind when I'm like, no, wrestling's in everything. I'm like, I promise you, you name one thing, I will connect it back to professional wrestling.
And there's a lot that you could. There's a lot out there that, that 3 degrees of separation sort of thing. There's like, you can figure out something for a lot of stuff.
Oh yeah.
All right. Next up here, I have to ask this with the name of a show like I have. Favorite drink, alcoholic or otherwise?
Ooh. I go alcoholic because I don't really drink sodas very much or anything.
Okay.
It's a two-way. It's a tie. So I love me PBR. Then any kind of mule, I absolutely love.
I do enjoy some good mules. My only thing with PBR though is if I'm like starting off drinking that, then I'm fine. But I've had times where like I go from drinking some of my favorites like Kona Big Wave or Stone Cold's Broken Skull American Lager, where like I go from that and then somebody hands me a PBR and then I don't know why. The couple of times that it's happened have been the only times I haven't finished a beer.
Yeah. So I mean, for me, PBR, it's always my go-to post-match beer if I ever can. Any kind of white trash beer, if I'm being honest. Busch, Miller Lite, PBR.
Yeah.
After a match, if I got a PBR in my hand, I'm good. I'm very happy.
Oh yeah, I got like I said, nothing against PBR, but like I have to be starting off drinking that for me to really enjoy it, because I feel like if I have the taste buds from the stuff that I was drinking before, and then I don't know why I feel that way about it. Yeah. It's weird when I even try to think about it.
Yeah.
But all right. My wife and I actually have both of these, and this will be the last question for the night because you kind of already talked about some of the best advice you have for people wanting to get in. So this will be my last question for the night here. My wife and I actually have both dogs and cats. Well, we really only have one dog right now, but some people lean more towards dog person, some cat. Where do you lean at there?
I am a cat person. I I have a cat. He's got one eye. His name is Gizmo. I love cats.
Hey,
I love dogs too. Absolutely love dogs. I've grown up with dogs my whole life, but in terms of just my personality, cats always fit better. Cats, it's like sometimes they'll be like, cool, I want to cuddle and play and stuff. And then they'll sometimes be like, you know what, I'm gonna do my own thing now. And I'm like, cool, I appreciate you. Dogs, it's always kind of a bit of a, hey, what are you doing? Hey, what do you want to do? Hey, can you pet me? Can you pet me now? Can we play? Which I love. I love. But
yeah.
I'm also a very busy person, and having a cat is it's much easier for who I am than it is to have a dog.
Oh yeah, no, understandable. Like I know for me, the dog my wife and I have, we have an English bulldog. At least his mentality, perfect for me. Literally, feed him, give him water, let him outside to do his business, and then if he gets the zoomies one day, cool. If not, he's happy as hell just napping on the couch all day.
Yeah,
my speed. And then my wife one time actually wanted to get another cat, so she ended up telling me, she showed me the picture of one cat, and then I worked evenings. I came back and I'm like, that's okay, that cat looks different. Yeah. And then I didn't even get 1 foot on the stairs to go upstairs and light on, and she's like, babe. And I just looked right at her. I'm like, you got another cat, didn't you?
Yeah.
And then she takes me into the room where she had it, and I'm like, now that cat loves the hell out of me. Like I literally have pictures of him using my beard as a pillow.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Yeah, I love cats. I feel like earning the affection of a cat is also just so much more rewarding. Like if you get a cat to like you, it's like, you know what? I worked for that.
You know what? And that is kind of true, because much like you said, they can have those days where like, oh, super cuddly, and then others are like, oh, you're here. Yeah. You go between. So it's like when you actually earn that affection from them, there is something about it that it's like, sometimes you drive me nuts, but I can't be mad at you right now.
Exactly. My cat, speaking of themed restaurants, I finally, after 17 years of going to Rainforest Cafes, got myself a commemorative glass from Rainforest
Nice.
Cafe, and he broke it.
Oh, no.
And 2 hours later, I was like, I can't be mad at you, though. You're just a little guy. You don't know what you're doing.
Oh, yeah. You're laying there in bed, and then all of a sudden they like crawl right on top of you and try to just curl up. You're like,
yeah,
you were a little shit earlier, but okay, it's fine.
Yeah, absolutely.
I totally get you there. All right. Well, before we go, where can people find you social media wise? So if they don't already have their eyes on you, they can go ahead and get them there.
I'm on Instagram at the Oceano Avery. I'm on Facebook at Oceano Avery. I'm on TikTok at the Ocean Avery. Those are really about all the social medias I got. But all right. You can find me all around the Southwest. I'm trying to branch out more to the West Coast, the Pacific Northwest. I'll be in Germany next year, so I'm trying to branch out. If there's any German or Italian listeners, you'll know where to find me next year.
Hey, I've had people that have gone over to at least Germany before. Makes me jealous, because the most I've seen of that country is through the Frankfurt airport window. But we'll get that out there. We'll get the social medias in the description. But that's about all I got. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me tonight. It was an absolute pleasure. Best of luck out there with the rest of the year, and I look forward to seeing how things go Italy and beyond.
I appreciate you. Thank you very much for having me.
See, now here's my fucking issue.